Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our panel discussion about engaging and upskilling your workforce. My name is Ruth Halewood, and I'm the Organisational and Workforce Development Specialist Advisor with Made Smarter in the Northwest. So the discussion this afternoon is very much going to focus on the people in your organisation. And if you've been watching some of the sessions earlier in the day, you'll no doubt have heard the phrase technology being used as tools, but that it's all about the people that are going to use them. I know that's happened in several of the sessions so far. So in our discussions this afternoon, we're going to look at how we can make sure that the people in your organisation are ready to go with using any new digital tools that you look to adopt. We're going to explore some of the benefits of implementing cultural change within your business and upskilling to ensure that all of your workforce, all of your people are sharing your vision with where you're trying to go with your digital technology tools. And you'll hear, if it's a mixed panel who I'll introduce shortly, you'll hear from some businesses, some SMEs that have been working with Made Smarter about their experiences of the digital tools that they are implementing and their experiences with cultural change and employee engagement within their businesses. And we also have some skills specialists who will share their insights about skills gaps that they are identifying in their work and different ways that we can maybe look to address some of these. So before we get stuck into our discussions, let me introduce our panel for you. So from SME businesses that we've been working with, we have Sarah Pointer, who's Operations Manager working at Arden Engraving, which is part of Arden Dyes. We have Rebecca Lee Panton, who's Compliance Manager with Fabricon Design. And we also have Luke Hickson, who's Design and Development Engineer from Fabricon Design. Luke was actually a digital technology intern from Made Smarter before he joined the company. And then our skills specialist, we have Sarah Dander from Ingenuity. And we also have Joe Croller, who works on the Industry Skills Intelligence team at Greater Manchester Combined Authority. So welcome to our panel and welcome to you all. Now, just before we get started, I would also like to let you know that because we know we've got quite a few different manufacturers watching the conference sessions today, we'd also like to do a few polling questions in this session because we thought it'd be nice to see what your experiences are in comparison to our guest speakers today. So if we could please go to the polling, and I will explain to the audience what to do. Hopefully you can all now see on your screen, there's a QR code there. If you wish to take part in the poll and answer any of the questions, which will come at different points throughout the discussion, then please scan that QR code now, and that will enable you to take part. And what I'd like to do, I'll just give you a couple more moments for anyone to scan that. Once you've all had a chance to scan it, we'll go to our first question, because the first question is mostly about what kind of organisation you're from. Hopefully you can see that on your screens now. So the functionality allows you to select more than one answer when you're seeing the different questions. But if you want to take part, please do answer this question now. It just gives us an idea of whose viewpoint we're listening to when you answer those questions. So we might come back to that once people have had a chance to answer it. Can we go back to our panel then, and perhaps we'll make a start on our discussions for the day. So the first thing that I'd like to ask you all about really is what digital transformation has meant to you as an organisation. So how much awareness did you have of digital technologies before you engaged with Made Smarter? And a little bit about the technologies that you either have implemented or are implementing. And we'll want to look at that sort of from the perspective of how is that changing the way you're working within your business. So perhaps Sarah Pointer from Arden, could I ask you what technologies were you aware of previously, and what things have you been implementing at Arden?
So as far as technology goes, I think we are quite a forward-thinking company in technology. We're aware of things like 3D printing, ERP systems. The problem that we found is that that's only in small pockets within our company. So it might only be a couple of people, and those people become very stretched. And so because of that, it meant that we didn't really implement things very quickly, or it wasn't really driven throughout the business. So it became like little kind of technology silos within our business.
Okay, thank you. So what would you say has changed about the way you're working with some of what you've been looking to implement?
So I think our engagement with Made Smarter has really helped us to formulate a plan, a strategy, a structure, looking at how we communicate that with our employees, how we bring them on board, how we engage them, how we roll it out, and how we use it kind of smarter and more efficiently. Things like looking at new skills that we need in our business to help drive that technology and to push that forward, help us to get new products to market quicker, help us to collect and analyse data. So it's really helping us in that respect.
Great, thank you. Rebecca, could I ask you about your experiences at Fabricon? I know that you did have some additive manufacturing and 3D printing, but I think you've perhaps implemented more things since you've engaged with the programme. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, Made Smarter came on board and completed a digital roadmap, created a 3-phase plan for us. They took us to the AMRC, the Advanced Manufacturing Research Centre in Preston, and to Print City, and to identify additive manufacturing which was more suitable to our needs, and help fund the Markforged X7, which we now use. It's industrial grade printing, and we use for manufacturing our jigs and jaws and tools. We can also use it on small production runs, and we use it for prototyping. We also visited the NEC with Made Smarter for the Digital Manufacturing Week to identify a shop floor data collection system. We're using Total Control Pro now, which we previously had a manual system with paper packs going out to the operatives on the shop floor, and we've now got it facilitates production tracking, and it puts us in control of our production facility now, and we've got real-time visibility on everything that goes out into the shop floor.
Great, thank you.
We've also skilled engineer, which is Luke, who's also on the panel, with the help of Made Smarter funding.
Great. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about your experiences of bringing Luke in a little bit later in the discussions, I think. I just wondered as well, I think from the way that Sarah Pointer was talking, and yourself as well, Rebecca, it seems like you've become more aware of technologies, and even if you were aware of some of them previously, but it's been partly down to the way your kind of leadership skills have come into play there in terms of how you've been able to take them forward. And I just wondered if I could bring in Sarah Dander now, and just, I know that the work that you do with Ingenuity, you do quite a bit of foresighting work and looking at what's going on out there in different organisations. Is this something that you are seeing, that leadership skills are needed as part of managing the change that a company is, inevitably will go through when they adopt a new technology?
Thanks, Ruth. Yeah, it is, and we've been doing some foresighting work with the High Value Manufacturing Catapult Network. Rebecca mentioned AMRC, who's one of the catapults, looking at what the impact of technology is on the skills and knowledge that the workforce are going to have. And I think the driver for skills always has to be the business adopting the technology for a purpose. And that's where the leadership comes in, because you have to understand what adopting a certain piece of technology can do for you as a business. because otherwise you end up with, a whole lot of skills which aren't actually relevant to what you want to do as a business. So the technology that's relevant to you as a business.
Great, thank you. And Jo, with the work that you're doing with the Industry Skills Intelligence team, is that something that kind of echoes with you?
Thanks, Ruth. Absolutely. It's one of these things. I've spent the last 4 or 5 months kind of looking across the wider manufacturing sector across Greater Manchester. And in some corners, there's a huge variety of different kind of awareness and different levels of leadership skills in particular. There's some organisations that have almost a head in the sand type approach to this sort of stuff, and they can see it happening to other businesses, but think that it's not for them. And yeah, I think, like you say, what really needs to take place is the business owners, the managing directors. It needs to come from those kind of leadership teams. When it comes to the kind of adoption of these new technologies, it has to be driven with a purpose, as Sarah mentioned.
Great, thank you. I think it might perhaps be a good time to just pop back to our polling question and see if we can have a quick look at who's answered that. And again, if anybody has joined perhaps a bit later and didn't hear me talking about this, the QR code is on the screen now. If you want to join in, you can scan that and then answer the question. So it's interesting to see we've got a good range of different size manufacturing organisations in there, as well as some business support organisations. So we should get some useful answers later on. That's great. Oh, and I think, sorry, can we go back to the panel? And I will then actually say the rest of what I was meant to say to the audience. So apologies that I've forgotten to tell you this. If you've been with us, throughout different sessions in the day so far, you probably already know this, but apologies to anyone who hasn't been. You can ask me questions at any point during this discussion session, which I can then put to the panel. On your screens, there will be a little kind of chat box that has 2 speech marks that say Q&A in it. I think it's bottom right for most people, depending on how you've got your screen sized. But just be aware that that's there. And as and when you think of questions, you can put those in the box, and I'll be able to direct them to the panel. We have actually got one question here that's come through, and it's talking about having a lot of older employees within a company, and how can we prevent losing their skills in the future? So that's an interesting one. Is that anything that Sarah Dander, that you've come across in terms of organisations that you've spoken to as a concern?
It is, and coincidentally, we're about to start a piece of work on that very topic, so it's very timely. I think we're seeing, there's a natural curve with, the profile of the workforce in manufacturing, but I think the pandemic's actually exacerbated that we're losing a lot of skills from, sort of the older workers who are, for whatever reason, leaving the workforce. So I think making sure that we're capturing the technical skills, the know-how, and those absolute nuggets that only, Jo in engineering or, sort of Sarah in, sort of ops knows is really crucial. So I'm happy through Ruth to come back with further information on what we're doing on that. I don't have the full answer at the moment, but I think it's crucial to make sure, and it's part of understanding what are the skills and knowledge that group of, that any of your employees have got, that group of people have got. Because quite often you've got those hidden talents that you don't actually know that, as I say, Jo's the only person in the company who knows whatever it is.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. I know that I find when I'm working with clients that does happen, and there might be, a key skill set, and there's only one person in the company that currently has that. So when I'm working with people and we're looking at kind of upskilling and cross-training type activities, so if we identify something that really is a key skill, then we'll look at other employees in the company that might have either an aptitude in that area or an interest in it, and encourage them to do some training. We can also look at things, there are training courses out there, I'm sure certainly Sarah and Joe will know all about this, called Train the Trainer. So that's another area that I would tend to look at with people. If you've got someone that's really good at something and they have your key skills, it's then helping them learn how to train other people, because you can be really good at something but not necessarily good at training. So that's another area that you can look at, and then try to capture that skill set that you've got in house and upskill other people there so that they can continue in that way. I've just seen another question come through. So if the team could quickly share the QR code again, I think there's some people that didn't have a chance to scan it. Thank you. Okay, and I think we've moved on to one of the other questions here. So while we're actually on this, if you're looking to join in, the QR code is there. And I guess since it's on the screen, let's go to this question for the audience. So have you actually identified any digital skills gaps within your own organisation? Now, I'll give you some time to read the different answers on screen there. I'm not going to read them all, but the basic routes are either basic digital skills, more specialist digital skills, digital leadership skills, or that you haven't been able to identify them and you would like some help too. So I'll just give people a couple more minutes to read that. In terms of looking at skills and what's needed, when we do go back to the panel, it'd be interesting to talk to Dyes and Fabricon about what skills they had identified that they needed, and then what they've actually done to acquire those. But I'll just give people a couple more minutes to read that, because I know there's quite a lot of text there in the question. I think from a Made Smart perspective, I can tell you all now that we have found a lot of the projects that people have undertaken through Made Smarter and had some funding towards have been based around data systems and integration, and we've certainly found that there's quite a big skills gap around that, in that a lot of SME manufacturers have data. It's not that they don't collect it, but it can be in lots of disparate places, and it's having that skill set to know how to kind of manage that data, a bit of data wrangling, as it were, how to get the data into a more usable form, and then some kind of data analytical type skills about visualizing it and using it in useful formats like dashboards to actually make the most of it. So you've got that data there, but you need to be able to really manipulate it and control it, really, so that it can give you better insights to make some decisions for your business going forwards. Okay, could we have a quick look at the answers now? I think we've had quite a few people responding to that. So we have quite a lot, interestingly, of specialist skills that are needed. And also, I think that's 42% on the leadership skills as well. So I think that does kind of echo what we've been saying, really. And interestingly, a smaller percentage are saying that they do need help to identify. So any of you out there that have answered that you're not sure, please do get in touch with Made Smarter today, and we'll be able to help you with that. So could we go back to the panel then now, please, and we'll see if perhaps Rebecca and Luke from Fabricon could tell us about the skills that they identified that they needed to take things forward. And I know that you have some interesting things to talk to us about in terms of how you've addressed that skills gap, because Luke obviously came to you as a digital technology intern initially. So I'll stop waffling about that and over to you, Rebecca. Would you like to start by telling us your experience then?
Yeah, we spoke to Made Smarter about helping us with the roadmap and implementing the data collection system, also help with additive manufacturing, and also the CAD design and fusion. And with the help of Made Smarter, we brought Luke Hickson on board as a 6-month placement, and it's so successful that now he's part of the team. And Luke's responsible for implementing the shop floor data collection system with the operatives on the shop floor, also with additive manufacturing as well. So he's an all-rounder and has the skills that we needed to bring in to develop and implement it with the rest of the team. And how he does that is over to Luke, really. Luke can explain how he's done that with the shop floor.
Yeah, well, with the shop floor data collection system is a tablet-based system with handheld scanners. So the way I went around that was first showed them how to use the system, created a basic cue sheet, showed them how to get the workflow of the system down, and then slowly added in more functionality until we get to the point where they're quite self-sufficient, and then they can start helping others. So we identified the operatives that would be best suited to start with, and then as we can trickle it down through the other operatives with them helping each other out, which trains them a bit more of if they can help someone out, then they know they're getting a bit more knowledge of the system as well. So we've got two tablets in place at the moment, but we're looking, getting more and more in place as the days go on.
Great, thank you, Luke. Would you say from the other kind of technologies that you've been implementing at Fabricon, obviously you've started to do a lot more with additive manufacturing and 3D printing, and I know within Fabricon you use that alongside the more traditional manufacturing techniques as well. Would you say that the skill set for that has basically helped you in what you're doing in general? I think perhaps I'll direct this one to Luke. I know that some of the work you'd done during the early-ish phase of the pandemic, for instance, was involved doing some rapid prototyping on. Was it that? Would you like to share a little bit on that?
Yeah. So last March we were approached by 2 local hospitals that needed help with getting some products to help with the COVID pandemic. One of the parts was they couldn't get access to the original part because the manufacturer wasn't making it anymore. So we worked with them to develop, reproduce that part, but designed for additive because getting a moulding tool made would have taken too much time. So it was quite a short time frame. So we used additive there to really get, I think it was 250 parts in a week or 2 out to the hospital. Quite an important valve for a respiratory machine. And then the other one was a breathing apparatus for surgeries. It was, they were trying to modify systems that had to work for how they wanted it on quite a short timeline. We used the 3D printers to prototype before then getting a injection molding tool made. So it was just that ability to iterate the design and go through a couple of different versions to get the final product right before investing in the actual molding tool and getting that produced. And I think we've made about 10,000 of those parts now since we got the tool made. So additive was really key in the way we worked in those 2 projects.
Great, thank you. Could you think that the rapid prototyping kind of aspects of the skills that Luke bring, has that helped you in other areas within the business as well? What you would have done previously to do design prototypes?
Well, I did the master's course at Print City, it's industrial digitalisation. So a lot of the skills I learned on that course I was able to implement into my work here. So knowing how to design for additive, the choice of materials, when to use each of the different technologies, because we've got two technically free technologies, so it's when the best applications to use those. And since I've joined, I've used the printers to make quite a lot of jigs and fixtures. So rather than machining and tooling out the fixtures, it was sometimes easier just to put them on the machine, have it print overnight, and it's ready the next morning to continue production. So it's sort of changing the way. Not everything has to be made out of metal on the machine. It can be a hybrid of the two.
Great, thank you. Is it possible to go the skills question, just have another look at the percentages for a moment? Because I just wanted to ask, sort of bring in Sarah Dander and Joe to see whether the numbers that we got on there, if that kind of echoes what you've been seeing in the work you do in terms of where those skills gaps lie. So I think there's 42% there on leadership. Does that kind of sit well with in terms of what you were experiencing? Sarah, can I go to you first? Sarah Dander?
Okay, so I was just hesitating because I didn't know which was going to go first. I think it's very much that everybody talks about digital, and it's a really widely used term, but people don't necessarily, both in terms of employees and business owners, necessarily know what digital means, because it means different things to different people. So it's everything from being able to use a smartphone, and I was interested by the low percentage of basic digital skills, which I think is really good, because one of the things that we are seeing is that everybody needs digital skills these days. Everybody needs to be digitally literate to be able to do the things that Luke was talking about, to Luke and Rebecca and Sarah, around receiving digital work instructions, being able to sort of take and manipulate, to enter data and manipulate data. So I think there's a piece around leadership for people actually understanding, what does digital mean for them, what can it do for them, and how do they then harness the power, and what skills do they need. I always talk about a pyramid of sort of digital skills, with at the bottom you've got the wide, everybody needs to be aware, everybody has to have those very basic skills. You've then got the middle band, which is the people in your workforce who need what I'd call enabling skills. So they need to be able to do things with technology. So whether it's use data, follow work instructions, program, sort of automation machines, or, sort of programming, robotics. And at the top of the pyramid, you've got your experts, and most companies don't necessarily need that many experts. So, if you talk about cybersecurity, you need everybody in the company to have an awareness of cybersecurity, but you don't need lots of cybersecurity experts. So it's actually identifying what's the profile of digital skills that your workforce needs, based on the, how you want to use technology, which brings us all the way back to, you need your leader in your management team to understand how technology can benefit them. And Ruth, I'm going to do a little advert for the work you and I are doing around some online materials to try and help companies as part of the Made Smarter pilot, to just understand what technology can do for them. So watch out for them, they'll be coming soon.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. I think it's a watch this space, isn't it?
Yes.
On that one for now. Yes, coming soon, definitely. And Joe, don't want to leave you out. I was going to ask if the things that have come through from our audience there, and what's been shared by Fabricon and Ardent Eyes, does that echo with what you're finding in the work you're doing as well? The same kind of area.
Thanks. It does, and I'd like to echo Sarah really and say that that those numbers are quite encouraging, because those kind of advanced digital skills are often needed towards the middle or towards the end of people's kind of digitalization journey. So it's obvious that some people have already taken the first few steps, and we do see obviously quite a big gap in between some organisations still sort of lagging behind a little bit, whereas the others that are starting to kind of push forward, that's when they start to need those kind of advanced skills. And I think Sarah's right in that, we are in the future, we're going to have sort of programmers and software developers in sort of senior positions within organizations, manufacturing organizations, alongside the traditional kind of engineers and the production managers and whoever else might be involved. And, if I was a team leader, for example, in a manufacturing organization at the moment, I'd be looking at these types of areas, data analytics and the use of sensors, additive, these types of areas to kind of specialize in and make that my kind of niche, if that makes sense. I think what it does help as well with, we do quite a lot of work on the careers attraction piece as well. And we know we've kind of alluded to it already around the kind of top heavy workforce, the aging workforce within manufacturing. These types of positions, these kind of advanced digitalized positions are very much a little bit more attractive perhaps to young people. A lot of the time, these are digital natives, young people that are coming through having grown up with computers, and parents and children at school and at college often still have a bit of an impression of manufacturing as kind of almost Victorian, these big sort of dirty, smoky factories, and it's not remotely the case anymore. So these kind of the more and more of these positions that are kind of available will certainly do wonders for the workforce and for the skills attraction piece as well, getting young people into those kind of entry level positions, I think, as well.
Great, thank you, Joe. And Sarah Pointer from Arden, I just wondered if you could share with us some of the work I know that you've been doing there at Arden. I think when we were talking to you about skill sets and we were looking at the again, this was an additive manufacturing 3D printing area. We were looking at, because you already had some of that in-house that you were using, as you said earlier. You're not strangers to digital technologies, but you've kind of looked to do more since you've engaged with us. I know you were quite good at looking at your existing workforce when we were looking at who it might be suitable for to do that additional piece of training. I just wondered if you wanted to share anything around it's sort of bringing in that piece about there might be digital natives within your organisation that you weren't aware of. I know you did some things around that.
Yeah, I think we're a really good example of where we're really lucky that we are manufacturing, slightly engineering, and actually we have a software division sat next to us. So we actually have the dream of everything. And I think we're a really good example of actually where if you don't have, and this is where this is the area that we're looking to upskill, if you don't have the leadership, if you don't have the project management skills, the ability to analyse and move forward, you can have it all. But if you don't have that kind of those effective tools to drive it forward, that's the important thing. And so we really looked at, and I think you're guilty of not really looking in all areas to see what staff you've actually got and what skills they can bring. So yeah, we definitely looked in different areas, in production, in the CAD pool that we already have, and we put them on the Print City course with Made Smarter, and that was a 12 week, I think it's 12 weeks, 10 or 12 week course. And they've then gone away and learnt that themselves rather than doing that in-house. And what that's done is also strengthen the skill that we had in-house as well, and had that kind of cross-learning. And then to strengthen it even further, what we've done is gone down the internship route. And the two interns that we've got at the moment are now kind of mentors and furthering that learning for the two people that went on that course. So for us, it's just been a really perfect fit to really embed that. And then now we're looking at how we can put that into part of our production and how we scale that up. Because before it was a couple of 3D printers sat in a room and we'd mess about and dabble with it, and it was just all a bit of R&D, but it wasn't ever really driven forward of how we can use it as a tool to drive our productivity. And that's now how it's kind of advanced us a lot. It's just that whole strategy and what we do, and it's those skills that we're kind of looking at and how we manage projects to get things over the line.
Great. Thank you. One thing I wanted to bring up during the discussion as well is the fact that skills is continuing to be the top quoted barrier to adopting digital technologies. I think it was a Make UK Innovation Monitor report, which again was quoted in, they did a piece on digital skills for a digital manufacturing future. Anyone from Make UK that's watching, please forgive me if I'm misquoting your report title, but I think that's right. They looked at the differences between what was going on in 2018 and 2020, and the top barrier still to adoption was digital skills. And interestingly, the second top stayed the same as well, which was data compatibility, which sort of brings me back to what I was saying earlier about some of the findings that we've had through the pilot programme around that data piece. In a lot of cases, manufacturers are collecting data, but is it compatible with, well, you know, if it's in service, is it compatible with systems integrated there? So it's clear, I think, to everybody that digital skills, you know, are going to be what can help drive this forward and make it, you know, easier and better for people to carry on looking to adopt these tools. One question that's come in actually from the audience is an interesting one, is saying, what are the key skills that I should be recruiting for or looking to bring in some way to future-proof my business? So that's an interesting one. I wonder if I can pick on Sarah Dander again here. Forgive me, because I know you've already mentioned the foresighting work that you've been doing. Have you got any insight to share on that for our audience?
It's a really interesting question and quite a tricky one, because I don't think there's a one size fits all. But I think there is some basic principles that you know, everybody needs to have a level of digital literacy and that ability to, you know, not be scared of you know, a digital approach to things. I think we also need not to forget that actually a lot of what underpins the digital approach is a really good, you know, sort of understanding and basis in, you know, manufacturing and engineering principles and processes. So, you know, we're you know, I think one of my favourite sayings is Ohm's law is Ohm's law is Ohm's law. You know, so some of the basic principles, we still need that really good grounding in engineering or, you know, sort of manufacturing principles. But then I think there are within a business, there, you know, the skills that people need are some of what I think they're now called meta skills, but, you know, sort of those common core skills. So, you know, you need people to be, you know, creative so they can start to see the solution. So I think Luke was giving some good examples of that. You need people to have that, you know, that innovative mindset, that they can see how things that can change. You need people who can problem solve, because I think one of the challenges for businesses and for individuals is that, you know, the world moves at such a pace these days that everybody constantly needs to upskill. You know, I think the days where, you know, any business didn't do upskilling or reskilling, you know, over any length of time are gone. I think, you know, people need to be, you know, looking at refreshing and updating their skills on a minimum of, you know, ideally annually, but on a 3-yearly cycle. But you need those foundations. So, you know, the understanding of engineering and manufacturing and the principles, the digital literacy, and then the if you like, it's the behaviours and the, you know, sort of the capability to problem solve, to be creative, to be resilient, to be innovative, and then you can build on that with the, you know, the specialist skills that you might need. So if you're looking to you know, implement additive manufacturing, then you need some very specific skills in that area. You know, if cybersecurity was something you were looking at, but I think if you've got the foundations, you can then add the specialist skills on top of that.
Great. Thank you. And Joe, does that kind of echo your experiences in what you've been doing in terms of what
it does.
What people are saying they think they will need?
Absolutely, and it's these kind of hard to pin down sort of skill sets really that are difficult to recruit for, and problem solving is one of the big areas that people look for. These types of qualifications that people may have done if they've qualified in Lean or Six Sigma, these types of areas, these people tend to be much more open to kind of new ideas, new digitalization, new technology being brought into their businesses. And I don't think it's just about that. I think one of the other things that businesses can do to kind of prepare themselves and their staff is create the right environment for those types of things to flourish. So Sarah mentioned, things like mindsets like innovation and resilience and being comfortable with change, those types of things. Empowering staff and understanding that the operator who is closest to the process probably understands that process better than anyone else in the business, allowing them to make changes and not trying to drive it. We have already talked about the importance of management and of leadership, but the empowerment of your staff that are on the front line and right next to the processes, to give them the tools that they need in order to kind of make the changes themselves and start shifting towards better and more efficient processes is I think a big part of it as well. So trusting in your staff, I think, is a very big part of it.
Great, thank you. And Sarah from Arden, I think you have some quite good experience of perhaps don't want to say difficulty because that's not the right word, but some challenges around kind of the culture and getting everybody to be on board with those. Although you're already doing a lot of things with digital technologies, would you agree there that the way to try to get people on board with what you're doing is involving them in that process in some way and trying to kind of set that kind of vision for everybody by enabling them to be part of it?
Yeah, 100%. And that's what we've really been focusing on. And we've done a lot of waste initiatives, a lot of in-house training, trying to upskill. We've offered things like lean and business improvement technique training to all of our staff, just to try and change that culture, that mindset, getting people to question, oh, well, we've done this for however long. Does it really need to be done that way? Is there a better way? And that not having that acceptance of things and wanting to change and wanting to make it better. And we're really seeing the benefits of that. And interestingly enough, our biggest problem is actually not at the production level at all. Our biggest challenges are around our leadership and management. That's where we've seen the most barriers, the most kind of harder things to change, that understanding what is a cultural change, what do we mean when we talk about culture, because again, I think these are kind of conversations that people are starting to have more and more, and we're very traditional manufacturing, and people are scared of change. People also are scared of saying, actually, I don't know what that looks like, or I'm not quite sure what that means. And I think that's definitely a journey that we're on, but we're definitely starting to see the benefits of that. And as we go forward, more people are definitely coming on board. But I would say it's about education. For me, that's where it starts, and that's what we're looking at. How can we educate ourselves, our whole team, our whole business, at every level? How can we kind of make the whole system better?
Great, thank you. Just seen another question that's come in, I think, from part of the earlier conversation where we were talking about interns and the impact they can have and how they can integrate and perhaps do some upskilling with other employees. Some questions around how much supervision is required. I guess maybe there's people in the audience that are thinking, well, it sounds interesting, but will we have the time to supervise it? Perhaps I could bring that back to Rebecca, because I know obviously Luke is now with your company, having previously been an intern, but what kind of experience did you have there that you could perhaps share with our audience so they give them an idea of what's involved from the supervision side of it?
Luke works closely with the production manager and the managing director, actually, they're hands-on with the additive. He works for myself with the shop floor data collection system. So Luke's not actually, he's very skilled in what he does. He's a master's student. He actually doesn't have take much time of any of our time up. He's always looking for new ways and new ideas himself. So it's not something, we don't have to hold his hand through everything. He takes the initiative. So currently with Luke, it's not a problem at all.
Thank you for that, Rebecca. And I think just to add to that anyone that might be thinking that an intern could be something that would be useful to them as a business, within the Made Smarter programme, if we're looking at that with you, we will talk to you about it, make sure that we understand exactly where you're looking to go with those skills that you're looking to bring in. And our technology specialist advisors will also work with you to kind of help scope out a project for them to do. And we do a kind of matching process there. So it's very much tailored towards what you need, and an interview process that makes sure it's a good fit as well, both for your company and the intern. And I think, we've had some good statistics coming out of that programme. I think 50, I think it is, placements so far, of which 14 were offered full-time employment following it. So we're obviously, the businesses out there that have been using interns have had some really positive experiences there. So that's good to know. I think now might be time to move on to sort of looking at any sort of barriers to training. If people maybe have been thinking, perhaps we ought to do something about digital skills, but haven't been able to. So if we could go to, I think that it should be the next question on our poll, and see what people think there. So if you haven't, or you don't intend to train your staff on digital skills, what are your main reasons for that? And if there's more than one, you can select more than one of those options. So I'll just give you a minute on that one. I think sort of we want to have a little look at those reasons. Then I'd also like to cover how we go about this upskilling process, and what do we think about existing kind of training provision. So perhaps I'm not sure we've had enough answers to look at that yet. So if we could go back to the panel for a moment, and perhaps we could start to look at that. I certainly know that Sarah, Danda and Joe will probably be only too aware of the Skills for Jobs white paper that DFE released in January this year. So that's very much kind of looking at wanting to put employers at the heart of the education system, and looking at bringing in more higher technical level qualifications. That comes from the sort of point of view that we've been very good with degree level qualifications, but we've not focused as much on there. So that's obviously a change that's going to be coming into some of the training provision that's out there. But I wondered, perhaps I could ask Sarah Danda to share her thoughts around that, and whether you think this is something that is really going to be kind of responding to what employers are saying they need out there.
Thanks, Ruth. I think as with all these things, I think in part, yes. I think there was some real positives in the white paper. We're working really closely with as I said, with the High Value Manufacturing Catapult on a pilot around actually taking the outputs of the foresighting process and seeing them all the way through the skills value chain into actually development and delivery of courses. And I'll make sure that through the Made Smarter pilot, we publicise, what comes out of that, both in terms of opportunities for companies to access those courses, but also to input into foresighting. I think the challenge with upskilling, I think for everybody, is that it tends to be discrete. So if you were taking on an intern, an apprentice, a graduate, there are sort of existing schemes and mechanisms for doing that. if you want to take on an apprentice, there's an apprenticeship standard. Your local college or training provider will know how to do that, and it already exists. And I think with upskilling, the challenge quite often is that everybody's inventing or having to develop the content, the learning, the qualification, the curriculum that they need, sometimes individually. And what we're seeing is that the larger companies, the big sort of primes and OEMs, are tending to do that themselves. There's still the opportunity for duplication because they're all doing it, sort of in their individually. But once you get down to SMEs, it's much more difficult for an SME to do that themselves. And it's finding that mechanism to, if we find that common need. So, we've talked about the, data a lot. I know you did some work in the Northwest, Ruth, around additive manufacturing, in pulling out that common need and developing a course and some content to deliver that. So I think there's a role for all of us as support organisations working with Made Smarter to actually, once we've got those common needs, to work together to come up with a common solution, which can be delivered locally by individual providers. I think online has a role to play, but I think it's always got to be with a blended approach. I think it's very difficult to learn, to fully learn any new skill or sort of perhaps knowledge is easier in a fully online way. I think it always helps to have that practical aspect and that sort of group approach to learning. And I think that the other challenge for employers is that the funding for upskilling is almost always at a local level. So it can and does vary across Greater Manchester. So obviously Joe and his team will have some initiatives, but at local enterprise level there will be different initiatives. So it's not like an apprenticeship where you know what the rules are, and you know where the funding comes from, and you know where to go for it. It's much more challenging with upskilling, and I think I think there is a coordination piece to be done, both in terms of developing the content, but also accessing funding for it.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I'm just conscious of the time here, and I think I could probably carry on talking to you all about this for the rest of the day, but we have to stick to our allotted time slot. So if we could perhaps just go back to that last polling question so we can have a look at the results, that would be good. And then once we've had a look at that, we'll probably move on to the last question to make sure the audience get a chance to answer that. So, I think I think this is the final question, actually. Could you pull it back to the one before for me, which was about, if you haven't, that's it. Oh, hang on. Yeah, that is the right one. Sorry. I think I'm reading the wrong bit there. So that's interesting. The main reason there is needing the help to identify the skills. I think that is really interesting to see. And again, anyone that's out there that's answered that question today, please do get in touch with us, because that is definitely something that we can help you with. Also, can't find the training that fits around the work schedules is also interesting, along the lines of what we've just been discussing about relevant training provision, and perhaps looking for something more flexible. And then we seem to have fairly even answers around the cost or lack of available funding. So some really interesting results there. Could we move it on to the last question now, please, so that everyone in the audience gets a chance to answer that one? So this one's about what changes to the training provision that's currently available you think would give you the greatest support for your business. And again, if you think more than one of those apply to you, you can select more than one option. So perhaps whilst, because I think you can read it on your devices, so perhaps while people are looking at that, we could come back to the panel and carry on our discussion, so that we don't time out before everyone's had a chance to finish the conversation around that. So I'd be interested to get both viewpoints from our SMEs that are present today on training provision. Sarah from Arden, is that something that you've experienced? Where I know that you had a couple of people that did the our fast track additive manufacturing program, for instance. Is that something that you find you would benefit or you would like to see more of? Something that is a bit more flexible and can fit around working schedules, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always a trade-off, isn't there? And at some point, as a business, we just committed, and production had to work around that. And we made that commitment to for part of the bigger picture to move us forward, and that's what we did. And I think there are a lot of courses out there, and I think you're going to, if you, with the support of Made Smarter, I think you can always find something that's going to fit. But for us, we just kept coming back down to the bigger picture. What is this going to gain us in 6 months, 12 months, years down the line? And at that point, we kind of made the decision to make that commitment. So that's why we kind of that's the approach that we took. It's always going to be a painful one when product has to get out the door by a certain time, and but we were not breaking a cycle, and we needed to. So that's what we did.
Great, thank you for that. And Rebecca, from Fabricon's point of view, bringing in Luke as you did as an intern, was that something that enabled you to get some of those skills that you were looking for in a way that you wouldn't have really been able to do otherwise? Do you think there's anything there that... Oh, I think you might be muted, Rebecca.
I'm not. No.
No, I can hear you now, sorry.
Sorry. Can you hear me? Yeah? Hello?
Yes, we can hear
Hello?
you.
Can you? Sorry. Luke was an amazing opportunity to have with us. All the struggles that you're talking about, bringing him on board, we didn't have them because he's here to help us with all the introduction of the new technology that we're bringing in. So it worked hand in hand. The new technologies are on board, being implemented, and we're able to feed that down to the shop floor and up to the leadership with the help of Luke as well. So it has been a great opportunity for us, through the whole plan from starting off with the roadmap. So it was part of the roadmap. It's part of our digital strategy that we needed to bring on somebody to help us, and it's worked really well.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. Could we go back to our final question then, and let's see if we have some results to have a look at. Okay, so that is very interesting. Definitely to see the leading one there is the shorter, flexible, high impact courses around the specific skill sets. So that's good to see that is out there as a thing that people are saying they want. I think that's useful information for us all to know that you are feeling that way about it. And then also the next highest was specific funding for that. So again, interesting to see that. And thank you to everyone that's taken part in the poll there today. Some useful insights for us to take from that as well. So I think we're almost out of time now with our discussions this afternoon. But I'd like to thank everybody on the panel for your contributions today. I've really enjoyed being able to talk to you all about your experiences and the insights that you can bring. And I hope that our audience here today have found it a useful experience as well. So at this point, I think it's probably a good time for me to just remind any of you out there in the audience that are listening to us today that if identifying your skills gaps is something that you would like some help with, and you want to start looking at more digital technologies and how you might go about upskilling, then please do reach out to us today. Myself and my colleague Amanda Lyons, who's not part of the discussion, but she is on the event platform today in the networking section. We will be around for the rest of the day. So if you wanted to ask us any more specific questions about any of the support that we can offer in this area, then please do reach out to us there. Or you can always go onto our website, which is www.madesmarter.uk, and start your digital journey from the website there. So I think we're probably just about out of time now. So again, thank you to all of our panellists today. It's been a really useful discussion, and I hope the rest of you in the audience there have enjoyed the day so far, and that you have a good rest of the day. And I look forward to speaking to any of you that have any other questions later on.